All right, everybody, welcome in to episode 119 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. It is February 27th, 2024, 2 days until Leap Day. And we're getting close to getting into the spring months here in the U.S. and into fall down in Brazil. I'm Nick Hill, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee of the United States, and joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil is Gustavo Tomazeli. Yes. How are you doing on this Tuesday evening?
I'm doing great. Tomorrow's game day here in Americana. Looking to bounce back after uh very disappointing game we're gonna talk about down in the beautiful city of Franca. The shoe
Yeah.
city is known. The shoe city because it's known for the a lot of stores that sell shoes. But Rio Branco got their ass kicked in the
Yeah, I
season.
woke. Yeah, because that came on at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So I woke up at like 7 or something. I don't know. So I put the game on, just having breakfast and stuff. And yeah, not the most fun start to the day, at least as a distant fan of the Rio
As our
Branco Tigers.
ambassador, our Rio Branco ambassador in Chattanooga.
Exactly. Um, but in any case, we'll talk much more about that game here in just a minute. But I do want to start with some news that is affects both the U.S. and Brazil because this just came out earlier today, and this will be a very interesting game because it has been announced that at Camp Stadium in Orlando, which ironically we just were at the beginning of this year on New Year's Day, the U.S. men's soccer team will face off against Brazil in a friendly before Copa America. That will be held on June the 12th. And guess, yes, you know way more about the Brazilian team than I do. What do you think? A friendly match between the U.S. and Brazil will look like. The U.S. all time against Brazil is 1-18, with the lone one win coming in the Gold Cup in 1998.
U.S. and Brazil always had good matchups. I have two that will always remember in the back in my mind. The 1994 in World Cup at 4th of July in the very heat summer in California. Brazil got the 1-0 win, and it was a really good game. And the 2009 Confederations Cup final in South Africa, U.S. was up 2-0, but Brazil came back to win 3-2. Uh, it's gonna be Brazil's fourth friendly game in this year. They're gonna face up next month England and Spain, both games in Europe. Brazil's gonna play in Wembley and then in Madrid, and then gonna face Mexico in June. Time and place to be confirmed, but some rumors say they're gonna play at College Station at Texas A&M Stadium. That will be interesting to see that environment, and there's mostly gonna be Mexican fans. And this U.S. game is gonna conclude like a series of friendly games Brazil's gonna do. Brazil actually had a coaching change. Fernando Diniz was an interim head coach. Everybody thought he was gonna be promoted after Carlo Ancelotti renewed his contract with Real Madrid and clearly signed that he did not want to go coach Brazil. But turns out that especially a bad streak results, losing to Argentina in Rio, cost his job. And Dorival Jr., coach of São Paulo, was hired in January to coach Brazil. It's going to be a big challenge. I think this Copa America, Brazil really needs to do well, especially because Brazil has not been doing good in this past couple of years. The everybody has the memory of the World Cup, conceding the goal to Croatia in the last minutes of the extra time. But I think it's going to be a fun matchup. I think it's going to be a 50-50 crowd. Of course, a lot of, Brazilians. Orlando is known to be a very Brazilian friendly. You went to a Brazilian restaurant and you could tell that there's a big Brazilian community down in Orlando.
Absolutely, and as you referred to, Brazil will play Mexico in Kyle Field the week before on June the 8th. That same day, the U.S. will be up at the Washington Commander Stadium to take on Colombia. I also just want to give shout out to some more viewers here. Arthur Souza says
Oh,
Brazil has a great baseball team. Elaine
ah,
Barbosa
oh, my
says
love.
hi.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and
Arthur also
he's correct in soccer because baseball developing maybe 1 year. I mean, we still need to qualify to the World Baseball Classic. You know, it's a long way to go. And he says that Brazil team is no longer competitive. I wouldn't say that. Brazil is always a favorite. You know, the batting houses, the DraftKings, the all the betting websites. If you go to the 2026 World Cup, Brazil's gonna be the team that has the highest chances to win. So
I mean, Brazil reminds me a lot of like Kentucky basketball because like ever since I've really paid attention to World Cup, you guys have went to I believe it was what the semis in 2010, right? Or was it
yeah,
the quarters?
no, 2014. So
Was the
Brazil
semi?
since Brazil won in 2002, we stopped at quarterfinals '06, quarterfinals in 2010, semis in 14, quarterfinals in 18, and quarterfinals again in 2022. All
You
those
have to realize the U.S. Since I've watched has never gone past a round of 16. We've made the quarterfinals once.
Yeah, in that 2002 memorable, incredible run, that eliminating Mexico in the round of 32. I think one of the most biggest accomplishments in U.S. soccer history. But I think this Copa America reminds me a lot of the 2016 Copa America. The U.S. did really well. It went all the way to the semis, losing to Argentina, and Brazil did really bad on that Copa America in 2016. Eliminated in the first round, losing at Patriot Stadium in Gillette Stadium to Peru. And I think it's going to be a good matchup. I think both teams trying to find new identities. And I like the term that the U.S. men's national team Twitter used, the Continental Classico.
Absolutely. And, I'm just kind of curious. Do you expect Brazil to effectively come out full strength here for Copa America? Like,
Yeah, yes, Neymar is going to be the biggest question mark because he's still recovering from a really bad knee injury that he got playing with Brazil in a game against Uruguay. So I think the question that if Neymar is going to play or not is going to be hanging around Dorival Jr. Of course, the biggest talents of Brazil is all at Real Madrid, Rodrigo and Vini Jr. for now are, big talents. The question also is a good time to test Hendrick since it's not a big competition. Is he going to be called or not? Especially that he's going to Madrid after the summer. So a lot of questions. Brazil is coming to this Copa America.
and like imagine if Indra comes up to the U.S. and balls out this summer. Like that could start his ascent to superstardom internationally. Because obviously we've been talking about him, and obviously Brazil, he's already a star. But the rest of the world really hasn't been introduced to him just yet.
Yeah, and of course, it didn't help that he joined the Brazil team that did not qualify to the Olympics. So that kind of had a little, I don't see a big step back, a little step back. He's not going to be in Paris. But yeah, definitely. I think it's a good chance for Hendrick to showcase without pressure because I don't think nobody's going to be pressure him to be a star in a Copa America kind of tournament. And he's not going to be the main player. Rodrigo and Vini Jr., which also are going to be their teammates in Real Madrid. So I think it's a great chance to kind of, you know, test Hendrick to see if he can be useful in this Brazil national team. And uh, the big question is Neymar is going to be called or not. I don't think it's going to be 100% until June. And I don't know if Al is going to be all friendly to let him join the Brazil national team because it's so funny that although he's been paid a lot of money, he even has started one game for the Saudi Arabian team.
Absolutely. I'm really curious from our standpoint. Have we started that process of growing up enough to challenge a team like Brazil? Because Because I've said for years now the goal for the U.S. should be to be competitive for 2026 since you're hosting it, and that's your moment to really make soccer a mainstay sport in this country. That's the moment when we're hosting the World Cup. We've got to pounce on it. And this is basically our last dress rehearsal. It's the dress rehearsal. Yeah. Because if we don't have a good showing this summer, then I'm going to be really concerned for 2 years from now. And because I don't want to just, plateau at the round of 16. We need to go further. I would need at least a quarterfinal appearance, if not further. But is this team really built to go that far? I'm still not completely convinced.
But I think it's apple and oranges. I don't, because for example, US did a really good uh, Copa America in 2016, went all the way to the semis, losing to Argentina with a big performance by Messi, and then a year later couldn't qualify to the World Cup. So I think, of course, it will boost the morale of US doing a really good Copa America in their home soil, and for example, making all the way to the semis or even to the finals. But I don't think it affects, this Copa America necessarily affects the way the U.S. going to perform in the World Cup.
I mean, that is a good point. But still, I think from a morale standpoint, a lot's been made about, the USMT, constant chokers, constant losers. Of course, obviously they had a decent performance in Qatar, but you know, I think the hope is that they're capable of more than what they have shown us, and you know, the they can only change the narratives by winning. And of course, playing teams like Brazil will only hopefully sharpen their abilities.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good matchup. Probably will let my parents know about it because I mean it's always good to see the Brazil national team when you are, not in your country. I've been to two Brazil games when I was in US. Actually, one of them was against US at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey back in 2018. Literally, the game after Brazil was eliminated in the World Cup, and then the 2016 Copa America in the same stadium, actually, in the Camping World Stadium against Haiti. And I could tell people going to this game kind of, when you miss your home country, you're trying to find events that you can kind of, live a little bit. And definitely watching the Brazil national team brings up a little bit of home feeling to the Brazilians that are in US.
Absolutely. I still have never been to a U.S. match, so that's something that I have to do one day. But it's going to be a great atmosphere. And I'm sure, as you said, there'll be a split crowd. And it's going to be, I think, really, uh, really good time. I also want to point out Arthur also commented saying, a team that I like to see play is the women's team from the U.S., Germany, and Japan, which are great powers. And there are several teams that are becoming powers. This was seen in the last Women's World Cup. I mean, yeah, each World Cup you can tell there's more and more parity, and the U.S. women's team isn't just going to be able to sleepwalk. Let's be real. Last year in New Zealand and Australia, the U.S. women's team just sleptwalked through that. And plus, I think they were in a weird transition phase where you had vets like Megan Rapinoe, and then you had some of the younger stars you can tell are going to be really, really good, but they just weren't quite ready yet, and they were caught in that weird transition, and they just weren't able to three-peat. Um,
And speaking of women's World Cup, there's a little bit of a battle of hosting the next women's World Cup. Atlanta under consideration to host a part of possible 2027 women's World Cup bid. By the representatives from FIFA, the U.S. Federation, and Mexican Football Federation. They are probably gonna have a U.S. Mexico bid, be competing against Germany, Belgium, Holland, and Brazil. So there are four countries and one uh, two country, one bid kind of candidacy to host. In the Brazil side, even the president Lula received a committee from FIFA and reinforced the Brazil is a candidate to host the Women's World Cup in 2027. So it'll be interesting to see um, where is going to be the next Women's World Cup, because since it got so kind of big and people are paying attention more countries I want to host.
As long as it's on this hemisphere and this side of the world, I'm totally fine. Please, to God, never put it again in Australia or New Zealand. Now, I've got nothing against those two countries, but it's literally impossible for us to watch live events in those places because everything comes on at night.
Yeah, yeah. I had two memories: the 2002 World Cup and the 2012 FIFA Club World Cup. At least the 2012 FIFA Club World Cup, it was a night game in Japan, so it was not was a kind of morning game, but not a early morning game like we had in the Women's World Cup, like a 3 a.m. or a 6 a.m. game.
Yeah, that's what I'm partially excited about with this year's Olympics is that it's in Paris, so the time zone isn't as bad as
Yeah,
it has been. Because think about it, like the last three Olympics, so 2018 Winter Olympics were South Korea, the 2021 Summer Olympics that were delayed were in Tokyo, and the 2022 Winter Olympics, which admittedly I had boycotted, was in China. So now you have them in France, which
yeah,
is a
and
little
and
nicer.
then the next one's gonna be in LA, I believe.
Yep.
So a lot of big events coming up, and we'll maybe try to do a broadcasting of this game. Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what time it is, how it works out for schedules, but it would certainly be a really cool thing to do. Um, and kind of keeping on the topic of soccer, the CONCACAF Champions Cup round of 16 is in its second leg, and
Yeah.
Nashville SC off to it a fantastic start.
Oh yeah, definitely. It got a 3-0 lead on the road against Mocha from Dominican Republic. So I think it's on the books. I don't see Nashville losing this uh, qualification. I literally, I think would be impossible to do so. Another American teams that are trying to get a spot: Philadelphia Union 2-2 now, nearly in the end of the halftime. Won the first game, so the aggregate is 5-4. But the big game I think tonight is St. Louis Houston. Last week St. Louis won at the stoppage time, and Houston is gonna now be the host of the game. So I think it's gonna be a good matchup. We had also Cincinnati hosting uh, Cavalry. I know actually one tonight against Cavalry is in the next round, and New England Revolution also playing on Thursday, but also has a good lead. So I think all American teams are going to be fine. And Nashville, if they advanced, as I said last week, confirming their lead, they're gonna face Inter Miami, and my Inter Miami has a really good start in the MLS. They won 2-1. Have you seen the second goal?
I have not, but we just had a pretty wild finish in basketball when I just break in real quick. So Kentucky mistake. Kentucky had like a 6 point lead with a minute left. They blow the lead. Miss State hits a free with like 10 seconds left to tie it at 89. And now Kentucky has just won it at the buzzer with Ray
Wow.
Shepard, 91-89. Wildcats survive in Starkville after the Bulldogs had pulled back off an improbable comeback.
You
But
don't know how
we'll
you
get
feel.
more into basketball later. But
Yeah, what?
crazy
I mean,
finish.
yeah, crazy, crazy finish. I mean, I definitely want to talk about um, uh, basketball in a little bit, but just to finish soccer, as I was saying, looks like Inter Miami is going to be favored in this MLS. I mean, with so many talent, Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi, Davi Silva, I believe that Miami is going to be really one of the top teams in this MLS. They won. I believe it was on the road actually was actually tie 1-1, but they had a really good performance so far. Nashville 0-0 at home versus the New York Red Bulls. So I think it's going to be a really good MLS season, and soccer just kicking in US. I think you're muted.
And down in Brazil right now, obviously, soccer is definitely rolling into the early part of their season.
Yeah, if you want to, I just gonna if you want, I can like get soccer out of the way since you're
Yeah,
kind of like our topic. And Arthur Sold is mentioning his soccer team, Inter Limeira, actually kind of it's a kind of like a practice in Brazil. Like for example, Inter Limeira is gonna be hosting Sao Paulo, a big team, and then a business group down in Brasilia, the capital, kind of bought the game. So the game originally gonna be hosted here in the city of Limeira is gonna be played all the way in Brasilia. So tomorrow night, Inter Limeira, Sao Paulo in Brasilia. Inter Limeira needs to win to keep their hope alive to qualify. São Paulo in a little bit of trouble, some bad results, but I think with the crowd being 80 to 90%, São Paulo fans, I think they're favorites to win tomorrow. Corinthians lost at home on Sunday against Ponte Preta. Very surprising loss. They are almost eliminated because they are 4 points behind Inter Limeira and Mirassol. And if they don't, and if Inter Limeira and Mirassol win, or at least Inter Limeira wins the game against São Paulo, which should be playing the week 5, but was delayed because of the Super Cup. Corinthians is practically eliminated from the Paulistão, which is very disappointing. I mean, Corinthians is a big brand, a big team, and always disappointing when you see kind of being eliminated in the first round and not making it to at least the quarterfinals. It's kind of so tomorrow, Corinthians fans are going to be rooting for São Paulo. That's really ironic.
a
Brazilian Cup.
bad omen so far for them. I mean, as I've been saying, so far reminiscent of Santos last year.
Yeah, they got some new. They kind of got back at track with the new coach Antonio Oliveira. They won 3 out of the last 5, uh, and they had that tie against Palmeiras, which was impressive with down 9 men. Playing a defender as a goalkeeper, going the last second. But I guess that energy kind of is not there anymore when you lose at home to Ponte Preta. Like Corinthians fans were like hopeful to qualify, but after that loss, they're not that confident. Brazilian Cup continues the first round tonight. Vasco da Gama actually playing right now, winning 3-1. So basically, they are really close to be. They are basically in because they have to concede like 3 goals in 6 minutes because they can even tie to get in. So Vasco da Gama, the kind of the first team with the big brand to play in the Brazilian Cup first round. But also there's some like Cinderella stories. Souza from the state of Pernambuco beat Cruzeiro first division 2-0. They're eliminated. So that was a big surprise. Corinthians last week confirming their favoritism 3-0 advanced. Also, let me Bahia also got a really good win. They're in the first division, got advanced. Yeah, so this Brazilian Cup first round is a lot of like big teams against small teams, and like the small team get to host a game, but they have to win. They cannot tie or lose, or they are eliminated. But I guess like Souza, for example, got a like a shocker and beat Cruzeiro. And last but not least, our beloved Rio Branco went to Franca, lost 3-0 to a. I mean, what are your thoughts on that first goal the Rio Broncos conceded? Like, it was something I was shocked.
They just look so disorganized on defense the entire day. And first and foremost, I think I haven't really seen Rio Branco lose possession like that. I mean, they were just Franca just had control that entire game. They were living on Rio Branco's side of the field, and when you can't control the ball, you're not attempting to park the bus. It just wasn't gonna end well for Rio Branco. And I know you said they had a veteran defender that was missing on
Yeah,
Sunday morning, and I was
yeah,
wondering because they had a late Wednesday night game the other night, one that ended right at the buzzer. You turn right
yeah.
around, you go on a 4-hour bus ride. I just have to wonder, maybe they were exhausted. I mean, we're talking about like going from an 8 p.m. game on Wednesday night to a 10:30 a.m. game on Sunday morning.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I think in this part of the like we're getting to like the middle. We're literally in the middle of the first round. Like it's 15 games. We're down to game number 8. So by that point, some veteran players kind of starting to fatigue, kind of feeling. So now your roster have to be good because you need like players their sub to step in and kind of take the place and of course in the press conference after the game Von Meerschael was that not happy about it, saying Rio Branco played their worst game in the year, that he was feeling disappointed. Like I was trying to like starting the press conference say like, oh, Rio Branco had a lot of fights, had a lot of you know they try a lot, but what are your thoughts on the game? And they're like, no, it wasn't a lot of fight. They just play really bad. But hopefully tomorrow, Rio Branco can get back on track, win against America. Like America has a good defense but a bad offense. So if Rio Branco is able to score early, it should be uh, like a game that Rio Branco can control.
was Franca a team that was relegated from A3?
Couple of years ago, but many years ago, the like Francana has been playing in the same division as Rio Branco like for many years. Like they were actually Rio Branco actually eliminated Francana back in 2020 in a really crazy game. The Rio Branco has had twice the lead, but conceded twice, but they could tie because they won the first game 1-0. So that
Yeah, because I
game
have to say, because I didn't remember them from last year.
No. We Rio Branco did not play them because they didn't match up. They were in different groups every stage, so it was just not playing the same group. Was just not like they were in the same division many times, but it's just they didn't match up. Like there wasn't like a they were in the same group in the first, second, or third round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so see, America right now is 11th in the table because Google
Yeah,
has the table now
yeah.
for. So I see
It's
Rio
very
Broncos even despite Sunday they're still number 6.
Yeah, that's that's a pity because if Rio Branco had win the game, they could have been number 4 or 5. So now I say this, like they had a little bit of uh, like edge to burn. So now there's none. They have, and next week is the Derby. Is our Tennessee, Alabama, our Mississippi State, Ole Miss is the game. So even União Barbarense fans were kind of with the players tonight, and they're talking about are, and even the media questions today already starting to be about the Derby. So yeah, even though there's 2 games to be played before the Derby, there's still like starting to be a feeling about it.
And that's not a good thing. Yeah, they need to focus on these two because if you don't do well this week, then Unibarbarense right now is number 9. They're only a point behind Rio Branco.
Yeah,
That could be a game that determines whether or not you make the knockout stage after the
yeah, and
season.
that's no, no, and that's a feeling that Rio Branco players and coaching staff have been talking about a lot with me. It's like, yeah, I know this game for the fans has a really big feeling about it, but it's the same 3 points that counts against União Barbarense, Nacional, America, and we want to be promoted. We want to get to the next division, and we care about making the points necessary, not focusing on one game, but we want to be the best version of herself in the entire tournament.
Oh, I see. So next Wednesday is a night game, 5:30.
Yeah, it's a night
Oh,
game.
that's gonna be cool. There should
Yeah.
be some electricity. I feel like.
Oh,
Is that at home or is that a road game?
a road game. Rio Branco does not have lights, so it's gonna be in Santa Barbara, the West. So I'm gonna be in hostile territory. So
Absolutely. Well,
wish me good luck because imagine me, Gustavo Tomazeli, with my way to broadcast Rio Branco games at União Barbarense Stadium.
oh, absolutely, man. That's gonna be a show next Wednesday. But obviously, hopefully they take care of business this week and put themselves in a good position to move forward. Before we get back in American, I want to shout out, of course, Jason Warwick, our dear friend Jason Warwick. Greetings from Louisville. So far, no tornadoes yet. Some wild weather up north tonight. So tornadoes were approaching Chicago before I hopped on to start this podcast. Hopefully, things have calmed down with those storms. Arthur did also say he does not give up Rio Branco, say classification is still possible. Don't stop believing. Also, he shouts out that all of his teams did poorly, including the Phoenix Suns in basketball. Of course, I think they're, if I'm correct, they're right now would be in the playoffs. And the Minnesota Vikings in football, which that whole season was done when Kirk Cousins got hurt. But because right now the Phoenix Suns are number 5. So right now they would be in the playoffs. But as we all know, they have not had a good track record recently in the postseason. But moving back into some college basketball, of course, in 3 days, it's going to be March. It feels like March. It was 70 degrees here in Chattanooga today. And you know what that means? It is about time for some March Madness. And it is starting to get real for the basketballs, who find themselves square in the SEC title fight and the fight for 1 seed. Basically, you start in early November and you play all these games. You try to win as many as you can to be in these positions late in the year. Right now, the Vols are tied with Alabama for the top of the SEC, and really because the Vols beat Alabama earlier this year. The Vols right now are your number 1 team in the SEC, would be the number 1 seed if the SEC tournament started today. However, it is going to be a hard road ahead. Of course, the Vols did beat down A&M on Saturday night. Just was a massacre, 86-51.
I want to talk about that game because even though the results kind of show the game Vols dominated, Texas A&M came to play. They really needed the win, because they are in the first 4 out, and it looked like the game was going to be even up until I'll say the middle of the first half, and then James Adu and and the team kind of took over. There was a really great performance by the Vols.
Yeah, I think the player I was impressed with was Sakai Ziegler. Sakai Ziegler, you can tell, has recovered from his ACL last year. He is back to 100%. And, he had 14 assists on Saturday night to no turnovers. Yeah, the first game they had in Texas A&M 2 weeks ago, they had a ton of turnovers. It was a huge issue. But they were in complete control on Saturday night. And it starts with Sakai Ziegler. If Sakai Ziegler can play that much in control, I mean, there's been times where I think he plays a little wild, where he tries to play hero ball, but when he plays within himself, plays within the offense, I mean, he can be truly the best point guard in the country, or at least one of the best. And what's crazy, at his size, he got 9 rebounds on Saturday, which is insane. It just shows the motor. To get 9 rebounds at like 5'5", that's hard. That's pure heart. And he is right now the heart of this team. Of course, Dalton Connect, of course, he had 24, but it felt like Dalton Connect was a backseat to Sakai and Idu on Saturday night because, we expect Dalton Connect to score a lot of points. He got 24. It was a very he got 24 points. And it just goes to show how good Dalton Connect is when we say, oh, yeah, he got 24 points.
Yeah, but if the guy and Adu kind of step up like that in March, then I think you won't overload Dalton Connect, and then I think Tennessee is going to be really really favored to win. And in the bracketology again, it showed Tennessee playing Oakland again. It looks like this matchup is a big chance of happening.
Absolutely. Before we even get to that, though, I want to think about. Well, actually, we'll go to bracketology. Let me meander to that. But yeah, the point I wanted to make to what you just said is I think this team goes as far as Sakai and Jonas Idu allow us to go. Those, if they can play well, if Jonas Idu can hold his own against some of the elite centers that we're going to have to go through, especially like the Zach Eady's of the world, the Hunter Dickinsons. Um, those are the guys that we haven't looked great against early in the season. We lost to Kansas and Purdue. But if we're going to do that, if we're going to finally do something we've never done in school history, it's going to come down to, I think, those two especially. And then also Josiah Jordan, James Santiago, Vescovi, who have been very inconsistent offensively. But, I think with Santi, I've resigned myself to the fact that he's just a better defensive player than he is an offensive player. Because he's been really good defensively the past few games. He just hasn't been great on the offensive end, but I'm just going to accept the fact that's who he is at this point. And if Dalton Connect's like scoring as much as he is, it's not like we need Santiago Vescovi to score 30, right? So, but looking at the ESPN, which bracketology are you looking at?
I I don't remember. I know what the one that I looked at today is show Tennessee play Oakland.
See, because ESPN Ludinari's bracket has us playing Fairfield in the first round. So Fairfield, I believe, is it's the MAC conference. So it's the MAAC. Not like that really matters right now, but simply we're playing we're probably going to play a team like that. I don't think we're going to go any lower than a 4. Like if we lost out for some reason and lost in the SEC tournament, I think it would be like a 4. But we are likely looking at a 2 seed right now. Now, if we can go 3-1 or 4-0 these last 4 games, and then make it to the SEC tournament final on Sunday, then I think there would be a big argument for us to get that last 1 seed. Because I think right now, when you look at the last 1 seed, because Connecticut, Purdue, and Houston right now are pretty much all locks for 1 seeds, unless one of them collapses. And there's an argument to be made which one should be the number 1 overall seed between those 3 teams. But that 4th 1 seed, right now, the edge is to Arizona. However, you have to wonder if in the case of the Arizona Wildcats, will their conference kill them? The Pac-12 right now only has 2 teams in the dance, themselves and Washington State. And then North Carolina is that 3rd team with Arizona and Tennessee. Of course, North Carolina did beat Tennessee head-to-head. So if it comes down to a North Carolina-Tennessee decision, then it really, to me, it shouldn't matter what we do. North Carolina would deserve that spot over us because they beat us fair and square.
In the bracketology that I see, it showed the 1st seed, UConn, Purdue, Houston, and North Carolina. And then number 2 seed, Kansas, Tennessee, Arizona, and Marquette. So I think it's going to be down.
They don't even have North Carolina in the 2 line?
The what?
They don't even have North Carolina as a 2 seed?
Yeah, I guess it's interesting how different bracketologies are.
I have to say, because that doesn't seem... Because it seems like a lot of other people believe that North Carolina has a real shot at a 1 seed right now. Because CBS, they have North Carolina as a 1 seed.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm looking at.
Yeah, okay. So they have Arizona as a 2 seed. They have Tennessee as a 2 seed playing Morehead State. And then they're a team from Kentucky. So, and in this bracket, you'd have to think, what team would you want to be paired with? So, right now, that the number 1 seed in that bracket would be Purdue. We would also have Kentucky, Duke, Iowa State in our bracket as well. And I'll be honest, based on what I've seen from Duke, I'm not terrified of Duke at all if we have to play them. Because I think they come out to me as still a very, very soft team that we would push around again, like we did last year. Because you remember back in the second round game that we saw last year, Tennessee bullied Duke, and Kyle Flipkowski just had no chance in that game
Yeah, I
being
remember that
normal,
game.
effective self.
What is the player that played really good in that game and then left?
Uh, that was Olivier Comwa.
Yeah, Olivier Kamwa.
Yeah, and he made such a good decision because Michigan this year has won 8 games.
Yeah.
So but then again, what if Olivier doesn't leave, we can't get Dalton Connects. So you know what? It works. And actually, Olivier actually is out for the rest of the season following a wrist injury. So, I hate that for him because he was averaging 14 points a game. But he must feel like an idiot right now, to say the least. He left Tennessee, who's now a top 5 team, to go to an 8-20 Michigan team.
Yeah, decisions that you do.
Absolutely. And I must say also, I do have Philadelphia Union on versus I guess it's Dep Saprissa.
Deportivo Saprissa from Costa Rica.
Yeah, it's 2-2, and they have the game here on FS2 tonight.
Yeah,
So,
they're in the aggregate. They are 5-4. So the Philadelphia team is advancing so far.
so it's what 7-6. Holy cow! What in the world's going on? Like the lots of goals. But in any case,
Yeah.
Back to basketball. So we'll take a look at these brackets, right? Like in the ESPN bracket that exists. So Tennessee would be paired with Colorado State and Wake Forest, who could obviously just beat Duke the other day. Then, Florida, Indiana State, Creighton, adjacent to Tennessee. Those are some dangerous matchups, I think, for the Vols. The 1 seed there is Houston. Now, Houston has one of the best defenses, not the best defense in the country. I'll be honest, though, I don't get scared of Houston. Like, I'm not. Like, out of the 1 seeds, I think I want to least face Connecticut. Then it would be Arizona, no, not Arizona, but Purdue, and then Houston. And I know we have bad luck traditionally against Purdue, but we took them to the wire earlier this year.
Yeah. So I think a 2 seed wouldn't be that bad. I think Tennessee has a good shot, but in the end they might face like a Duke or Kentucky or even Purdue on the road.
Absolutely, and of course, their fate will be determined by what they do the rest of this season. Actually, right now, Kansas is in a tight matchup with BYU, 47-45. But tomorrow night, it's a big matchup in Knoxville because the number 4 Volunteers host the number 11 Auburn Tigers in a game to keep atop the SEC. Of course, this is Bruce Pearl back in Knoxville. That's always a big deal. But this might be the biggest Auburn-Tennessee match in basketball that we've seen in a very long time because Auburn is only a game behind Tennessee and Alabama. They're trying to also get their way back to some of that regular season championship and also try to get themselves into a higher seed. I think this is going to be a phenomenal matchup tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, I think Auburn in the last few years always gave Tennessee trouble, and definitely Bruce Pearl coming back to Knoxville always have mixed feelings about it. But I think it's a game Tennessee has to prove they are in the top of the league and really needs to step up, win, especially to have a chance to be the number 1 seed.
Absolutely. And if you can win that game, that's another huge step towards maybe getting that 1 seed that we're talking about. Because remember, Arizona, when we take a look at the rest of their schedule, the other games they play are Arizona State, Oregon, UCLA, USC. None of those teams are even close to tournament contention right now. So Tennessee had a chance to really gain some ground with the games they have left to play. And then Of course, Saturday night, they got to go down to Tuscaloosa. And if they win tomorrow, and then Alabama wins their midweek game against Ole Miss tomorrow, then you'll have Tennessee at Alabama on Saturday night, both teams tied atop the conference.
Wow. Can't get any better than that.
Yeah, Tuscaloosa will be crazy. And, of course, your Tennessee has not played great on the road at times this year. Of course, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, they have maybe one of their best games of the year in Rupp Arena. But, we just saw last week we struggled against Missouri, a winless Missouri team in Columbia, Missouri. So, I'll be honest, I don't see us winning both of these games. I think if we win both of these games, then I demand that we be put on that 1 seed line. Because I think we will have proved that we deserve to be in that 1 seed line if you sweep these teams. But I think that's a lot to ask in 1 week with these teams back to back.
And I believe the last time Tennessee won the SEC regular season was not even a full title. They shared with Auburn. I believe it was 2018.
That's correct. So if you win both of these games, then all you have to do is beat South Carolina, and then you're at home for the senior day against Kentucky. And imagine if they're up by a game next Saturday against Kentucky with the SEC championship on the line.
But the regular season SEC is going to be decided on Saturday. That's kind of it's not the last game, but it felt like a little bit like an anticipated final.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this might be the biggest Tennessee Alabama basketball game ever played.
It's going to be like a football crowd feeling.
Oh, yeah. This will be absolutely electric. I hope we can find a way to win both of these games. I think we certainly can. As we said earlier, if Sakai and Idu keep on playing the way they've been playing, I think Alabama's style of play we can take advantage of it. But granted, a lot of it comes down to if Alabama's hitting their threes, then they're going to be a very difficult team to beat at home in Tuscaloosa. But if they're missing their threes, if they're being reckless with the ball, because Alabama, my main criticism of Alabama's team when I watch them, yes, they're explosive. They can score a lot of points, but man, do they turn over the ball a lot. They turn over the ball so much. And their defense isn't good. They just gave up 117 points to Kentucky on Saturday. So I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be just a crazy game. In Tuscaloosa, of course, I think we beat them, 92-72. I think tomorrow's game will be a lower scoring because Auburn is a bit better defensively than Alabama is. But I think with our home crowd, I think Tennessee should be able to hopefully hold serve tomorrow. But it'll be a big challenge for both games. But hey, it's what you live for. It's what we do in Tennessee. We got to go up against the whole state of Alabama because remember, we truly this week don't give a damn about the whole state of Alabama.
No. And
absolutely.
On top of that, I think winning those 2 games is definitely show Tennessee is favorite. It's a big candidate to be a number 1 seed.
Absolutely. If you can win both, I think they would easily have the strongest resume between themselves, North Carolina, and Arizona. So a lot's on the line. This might be one of the most important weeks for Tennessee basketball ever. So in terms of regular season weeks. So this is going to be huge. These are going to be some just ginormous games. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, Kentucky, they survived Miss State. And that's after they beat Alabama 117-95. And their offense, as we have mentioned before, is fantastic. Defensively, are they getting a little better? Maybe. I don't know if it's good enough for March. So, yeah, but Kentucky is at least they're an entertaining team to watch. I will give them that. But I think the real story of the weekend of college basketball, though, the Duke Blue Devils, they were upset by Wake Forest on Saturday in Winston-Salem. And as always, as you see in upsets, you see a court storming. And during the court storming, Kyle Flipkowski For some reason, he decided to stand in the middle of the court, and and you can either argue he tried to push a Wake student or a Wake student pushed into him, but he twists his ankle, he limps off the court, and then John Shire, the head coach for Duke, goes whining to the media saying, "We have got to ban this. We cannot have any more court storming." And then, like, Bill Self for Kansas is whining about it, and several other coaches. And if you look at who's whining about it, it's normally the basketball powerhouse coaches who normally get court stormed against.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like the coaches that are complaining about, like for a Tar Heels fan or a Jayhawks fan to storm the coach, storm the court, it would have to been like a win against Missouri for Kansas, or for North Carolina with Duke or something like that. Because when you're a powerhouse, you don't storm the court. You know, like if North Carolina would have if Duke would have been Wake Forest, there wouldn't be any storm, like court storming.
Absolutely, man. Tennessee, we haven't stormed the court in anyone in basketball since 2006. Like at this point, we just expect to win games at home. But like, I don't want to ban teams. Like if South Carolina beats us next week in Columbia and they storm the court, like fine, like they've earned
that. The only thing when we had that kind of discussion in our WhatsApp group, I said at least make it a little bit organized. Like have like a P announcer say we win, and say let's storm the court after the road team players leave the court, so we don't get in trouble or something like that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this dialogue started after Caitlin Clark got ran into at Ohio State a few weeks back. So, I mean, they're probably going to have to do something. The NCAA is spineless, and they'll probably try to enforce some sort of rule. But I think it's just classic Duke whining again. Like, it's just they think they own college basketball. The college basketball bends to their every will. And no, I don't think it does.
No, and also like if the NCAA would to like punish Wake Forest, would be a financial punishment, like a fine of like $50,000. But I don't see them other way to punish. Like, are they gonna make Wake Forest play without fans?
Yeah, you can't do. You're not going to do that. Like that's ridiculous. I mean, remember people try to say that Tennessee should not have to play in front of no fans after the whole golf ball and mustard incident against Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in 21.
Oh, that incident! It felt like yesterday.
Yeah, the incident we began this podcast on. And speaking of NCAA, just while we're thinking about those jokers, the Tennessee got a pretty big one against NCAA this week with a preliminary injunction granted by the Eastern District Court of Tennessee. So the NCAA right now is completely powerless against NIL.
I guess NCAA can argue they play on the road since it was in the court in the state of Tennessee, but still was a really big legal win for the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, I think this will go to the Supreme Court, and I just don't see how rationally the Supreme Court could rule in favor of the NCAA. Like, this is restricting free commerce, it's restricting free trade, and it's asking students, as we talked about before, to sign a contract without knowing how much you're going to get paid. That's insane. That's literally against the law in some states. And I think what it's going to come down to is either players are going to have to sign a collective bargaining agreement with the SEC or the Big Ten, and they're going to have to break away from the rest of college sports, or Congress is going to have to step in and sign a uniform NIL law. Because right now, with all these different states, it's insane.
Yeah, it's Wild West. It's the Wild West now because, like, NCAA created such a draconian rule and such a enforcement that was ridiculous and had teams play under the table. Like we had the SMU case, Mississippi State, and so many cases. Then when you open a possibility of payment for players, of course, would end kind of in a not badly, but in a way that would have to be resolved by Congress or the Supreme Court because the NCAA created a problem and they can't fix it.
Exactly. So I'm glad the court saw the Tennessee and that we can conduct a business as we need to do. And I think Josh Pate said this. The different states and their different laws and different tax codes. Remember, Tennessee doesn't have an income tax. Is that going to end up helping Tennessee in recruiting? That we don't have an income tax. Like, hey, recruit, you come to Tennessee, you get to keep more for your money.
Yeah, like the NFL has that kind of persuasion. Like a player is more inclined to play for the Dolphins than for the Chargers if they had this kind of the same financial offer because of the no income state in Florida and in California. There's a really big income
Yeah.
tax.
Just like a Tyreek Hill, he's willing to play with Tua Tagovailoa for that reason.
Yeah,
So, in any case, it's going to be wild to see how that continues to evolve over the next couple of years. Over on the women's side, the Lady Vols, unfortunately, they had another big game this week against LSU, and they fought well. They were in a tight game, but stop me if you've heard this before. A Kelly Harper team against a big team fell apart in the fourth quarter and lost another big game at home to LSU.
there were some complaints about officiating, but again, another bad performance by the Lady Vols, and I guess they somehow are still, I think, gonna get in on like a 11 or 12 seed, but it feels like the end of a tenure for Kelly Harper.
Yeah, because I believe they're like a 9 seed right now, I believe. So, I mean, they're not doing terrible. I mean, they've won the majority of their other games. It feels like every game that actually matters, they don't win.
Yeah, I guess
And
it's not as bad as the last year of the Horlick Warlick era, but it's not good.
absolutely. And this week they have Texas A&M, and they have to travel to Columbia to play South Carolina. So I don't think that's going to end well for them. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say going to South Carolina is not going to end well for the Lady
Yeah,
Vols.
yeah,
And also too, I think just the women's bracket is going to end up shaping up pretty interestingly because Iowa's been kind of shaky recently. It feels like some teams are starting to get to Caitlin Clark in Iowa because right now, because they were like the number 2, number 3 team all year, they've fallen down to the 2 line in seeding.
yeah,
So Caitlin Clark, this is her like last chance, but Big Ten has not been kind to them. Of course, last week they lost badly at Indiana, and that's off losses to Nebraska the week before, and of course they lost to Ohio State a few weeks back. I mean, because a lot of the talk recently has been about the scoring record, and Caitlin Clark's going to go for the scoring record. The thing about it, though, who gives a thing about a scoring record if you don't win a title?
yeah. And basketball is a collective sport, not an individual sport. So of course, Caitlin Clark is once in a generational talent, and she's definitely can make a difference. But she can't carry the team in her
Yeah.
shoulders.
Hey, do you want to guess? So, like senior night, our senior day is this Sunday. They play at number 2 Ohio State. So it's 2 Ohio State at 6 Iowa. You want to know how much tickets are in Iowa City for this game?
I would have think like $300.
Yep, $339 for women's basketball. Think about how insane that is. That's how much Caitlin Clark means to women's college basketball.
And I guess there's a revenge kind of feeling after the whole game in Columbus.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be a phenomenal game. I'm going to have to tune into that one on Sunday. That's going to be on Fox too, on Big Fox.
Yeah.
Like I mean, what she has done for women's college basketball is really impressive. But yeah, so that's going to be a story to watch over the next couple of weeks. And some spring sports, baseballs are continuing to dominate. They absolutely blew out Albany over the weekend. Not too much of a surprise It's going to be a few weeks before they really get into the meat of conference play. Softball has been, I think, a little off to a little bit of a slow start. They're 8-4 so far this season. Over the weekend, they had losses to Cal State Fullerton and UCLA, but they did beat Oregon State and UCF. So, it's just early in the year.
Yeah,
And
SEC schedule hasn't even started yet.
exactly. And also, just a score update, Kansas is up on BYU only by a point at home in the Fog House, 58-57. So BYU trying to pull off an upset in Lawrence. But also, circling back to football here, there's a bit of rumor going around this week that college football is thinking about expanding to 14 teams for the playoffs. Because we just expanded to 12. They're thinking about adding 2 more. You think that's a good idea?
But if they add 2 more, it's going to be a kind of 7-7 or a 5-9. That's the difference going to be made. It's going to be keep the 5 automatic bids, or it's going to be 7 automatic bids.
Because right now you only have really 4 power conferences. Arguably, you have 2 elite conferences, 2 really good conferences, and then you have the 5, your G5. So if you have 7, then you're saying that 3 out of those G5 deserve to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
And we're probably resigning ourselves to some blowouts if that happens.
And the question is, what to do with Notre Dame? Because if you think about, I think being independent right now, it's not viable anymore. Like, for example, UConn was independent, came back to I believe was MAC, or like came back to their conference they played before.
Yeah, and I really got to wonder if that's going to affect conference realignment. Because, like, if teams realize, okay, why am I bum rushing to go to the SEC or Big Ten when I could just stay in the ACC, stay in the Big 12, and make the playoff way easier?
But I think for Notre Dame, they're going to have to wonder, is being an independent worth it? Because if they keep being an independent, they can have the best regular season of their lives. They're gonna be the number 7 seed.
Of course, yeah. But we'll say this: is it better to be that number 7 seed in the playoff and get that national exposure instead of going to like the Boca Raton Bowl?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But like, I guess for Notre Dame, it's like either do I want to keep my independent status, but kind of and get, I guess, another home game in the playoffs? Is that worth?
Oh, I mean, I think they're going to have to. Like, they're going to, like, this year, as you said, they go 12-0. Like, they can only be like the 5th seed. So, I don't know exactly how that works, how that's going to work for them, being independent moving forward. Because all Notre Dame wants to do is win a national championship, and they're actively making it harder to win a national championship.
Oh yeah, but I cannot wait to see those on-campus playoff college football. I was thinking about today.
Absolutely. And to enhance the college football experience, we got a lot more news about NCAA 25 this week. And we got kind of a teaser trailer for NCAA. We saw some of the...
I was going to say, as much as I want to show, I don't want to be kind of flagged by Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a teaser trailer, so we just saw like a handful of seconds. So I can't really glean much off of it. But I tell you what, the hype for this game is crazy. Like all the TikToks that are being made, just people talking like at work about this. I mean, people are beyond excited for NCAA. I think people have been looking for something different because for a long time. Because I think people are tired of Madden, they're tired of sports games. But there are hopes that NCAA will make sports games fun again.
And also, and also if you think about it, it brings a lot of nostalgia because the last time there was a college football video game made was 2014. So the millennial kind of generation, our generation, the 30 to 35 years old, when they play, they were like in their early to mid 20s. So a lot of people in our age definitely had great experiences with NCAA football 14.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'm gonna have to get myself a PlayStation 5, but I cannot wait to play it. They say Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler will be providing play-by-play. Uh, that there will be Dynasty, Road to Glory, that transfer portal, NIL will all be a part of it. The 12-team playoff will be a part of it. All 134 teams are a part of it. And of course, with the other kicker, all players can opt in to be a part of the game. They will get $600 and a free copy of the game. Now, there's debate on whether or not the $600 is really shortchanging them
No,
as athletes.
no. Like there's this discussion. I watch a YouTuber called Hika Pehoni that he really points out that it's madness to think that I don't wanna be part of a video game that will give me exposure because like they're gonna get $600 and a free copy of the game. But if they're in, a lot of people are gonna play with you. They're gonna care about you, and you're gonna have, for example, more value for your endorsement or even your NIL.
Absolutely. Like, think about Nico Emalava, for example. Like, obviously in Tennessee, we've been obsessing over him, but, other people in other parts of the country may not be as familiar with him. So, like, when they pick up that game, they play Tennessee, and they start having fun with that number 8, Nico Emalava, that's going to translate to watching him on Saturdays and to building
Yeah,
his brand. Or playing with Jalen Milroe down in Alabama, or playing Carson Beck down in Georgia. Um, Anyone who turns it down is a fool.
yeah,
I
a
would.
big fool, big fool.
Yeah, because I understand that you. So, for example, the in the NFL, $1.1 billion is allocated to the NFLPA, who then transfers that money to the players. So, if you think about 53 active players times 32, that's about 1,700 players. So, $1.1
Million or billion?
billion
Wow.
divided by 1,700. There's probably about 60,000. Well, actually, that's about on average about $600,000 per player. And you gotta imagine there's probably that, like, your Patrick Mahomes of the world are probably making or taking more of that home. So let's say your top players are taking about $1 million. So yeah, there's a huge discrepancy between that and college. But these college players are probably thinking, okay, in a few years, if I'm really good, I can be in Madden
Yeah,
and make that money.
yeah. And again, having exposure will help you down the line.
Yes. So hopefully they all opt in because I really want to go do some damage with Nico online. Um, Speaking of damage and just epic finishes, I got to talk about this epic finish at Atlanta on Sunday in NASCAR. I don't know if you saw it, Gus, but you've watched Cars, right? The movie Cars, right, on Pixar.
Yeah, yeah,
We literally had that finish. But like where it's a free wide finish and it's equal. It's tied. So they have to go do the cutoff race or the championship race in the first movie. We
yeah.
literally had the free wide tied finish in NASCAR on Sunday between Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, and Daniel Suarez. And Suarez got the victory. It's his second victory as a Cup driver. This whole race was incredible. I went to Atlanta last July for my first Cup race, and obviously it was a great track to watch in person. But man, this was just on TV. It's one of the most insane races I've ever seen. I mean, these dudes were going 4 wide for the lead. Of course, there were wrecks abound throughout the race. Only like 5 people didn't get into a wreck all day. But I mean, the racing in between was just unreal, and it came down to an absolutely glorious finish. And I think, arguably, it's the greatest finish since at least 2003 Darlington between Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch. And I think this is a huge moment for the sport. I mean, this moment has been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. It's been a topic of discussion online for a few days now. And I think you see a lot of discussion that, like, F1 could not do anything like this. F1 can't have any finishes like this. And I think with the recent Netflix show, with the fast start to this season, I think NASCAR right now is quickly season momentum back in motorsports.
Yeah, definitely. I think with big finishes like that, the interest always goes up.
Absolutely. And to have it so early in the season, just amazing. And Atlanta will be a playoff track as well. So that race is going to be much watch TV. This week is probably really our first traditional race of the year, going to Las Vegas, an intermediate track. We'll start to really see who has it this year in terms of championship potential. For me, I'll pick Kyle Larson. I think you'll start to see the cream rise of the crop here, and Larson finds a way to get it done in Vegas. Also, speaking of Vegas, the NBA, Adam Silver, he's thinking about dipping his own toes into the Sin City. Of course, we've been talking about MLB with the A's, but the NBA are the one team league that's left out. But Adam Silver has said recently he's really thinking about Vegas. Should the NBA expand to Vegas?
I think it's a no-brainer. Vegas, has a NHL team, a WNBA team, and an NFL team. An NBA team is inevitable. I think Las Vegas and Seattle are two markets that are really good for the NBA. Las Vegas, rising sports market, and Seattle, it's justice being done to the Supersonic fans.
Yeah, bring him back. Bring back the Supersonics. I agree on both points. I think that's what you're going to see happen. And MLB, though, is kind of interesting. They're still really thinking about Nashville. Of course, rumors existed for years that the A's would go to Nashville, but they're just looking at maybe just creating a new franchise outright. And this one, I don't know if this would work. I really think the South is Braves country, and it's going to be really, really hard to break that.
Yeah, but also Nashville in the South is kind of like this trend city, and the Nashville sounds has been doing really good with the fans. I think one of the best minor league ballparks in Nashville. The First Tennessee Park is a great atmosphere. Been there for baseball and soccer. So I think it's not going to be for now. I'll say 2027 to 2028. But Nashville definitely one of the favorites to get a new team. I think Portland as well would be good Major League Baseball market.
I think
And
so as well.
of course Salt Lake City already kind of candidate themselves because they are like trying to get the A's attention to be like, forget Las Vegas, come to Salt Lake City. Like, what a turnaround! What a turn of events!
Speaking of Salt Lake City, I had someone try to contact me as a Mormon missionary earlier. So that, but I'm not going to respond to that one, obviously. But, um, I think, Salt Lake City for the A's makes more sense than Vegas, personally. I think they will get many more people to show up and actually support them. But, yeah. So also, Shohei Ohtani, he made his debut earlier today for the Dodgers and hit a home run in his first game with LA. Obviously, it's spring training, so I don't know how much you can really glean off that, but it's just a sign that he's going to show up.
Chris Sale also had a great debut today for the Atlanta Braves. They played the Phillies at Cool Today Park, the place we've been last year, and it was a great atmosphere for I could tell. And I bet, from what I remember from that ballpark, it probably was electric, especially to see Chris Sale. Also, Juan Soto had a great debut for the Yankees, hitting a home run. But as you said, it's spring training, so players are like warming up their arms. It's not 100%. Of course, no, like Otani, Soto, Cresceo, always good to have a great first impression.
Absolutely. And BYU is about to beat Kansas in Kansas, 72-67 Cougars. Speaking of
What?
Mormons.
And it's good for Tennessee because Kansas also was like in the 2-1, 2-2 seed conversation. Good result for Tennessee.
Yeah, pretty much Kansas's one seed chances are pretty much done with this, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Um, some local notes here, real quick. First and foremost, here in Chattanooga, the South Broad Stadium, the Lookout Stadium saga appears to be coming to an end finally. Tonight, the City Council, Chattanooga City Council, approved a memorandum of understanding. Uh, Tomorrow morning, I will be at the Hamilton County Commission meeting, and I expect them to do the same. And this is the first necessary vote to approve the additional funding for the stadium. So we should finally, in the next couple of weeks, be finally building a new ballpark for the Chattanooga Lookouts. Which obviously it's been a difficult couple of months, I think, for the community. There's been a lot of arguments. It's been kind of a topic discussion, to be frank with you. But it appears that there's been a lot of concessions on both sides. There's been some additional things. There was funding given to like education from the county's perspective. Of course, the city, they focus on infrastructure. So I think political egos were finally set aside and they finally came together to get this deal done, which I think is a net positive. This will redevelop an old warehouse that has been abandoned for 20 years. And I think that is a great thing for the city of Chattanooga.
Oh yeah, I mean AT&T Park is a historical ground. It's very charming, but it's kind of decaying.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it historic. I mean, Eagle Stadium is historic over off of Third Street, but AT&T Phil's only been here since 1999, and people didn't like it from the moment it was built. So it needs to go. And South Broad Stadium will be that catalyst, hopefully, for the South Broad, because I work in that particular area of town. So I'm excited to see what it brings to the south side of Chattanooga. And to finish off our show, the new Nissan Stadium will be broken ground on Thursday in Nashville. So going to be a huge day for the future of the Tennessee Titans, as the future of the Titans, as we see.
I mean, I think the pressure of needing to upgrade a stadium for the Super Bowl kind of drive this move because Nissan Stadium, as it is, I think is a fine stadium. I think it's a good stadium, but we all know that with the current stand of the stadium, the NFL will never considered Nashville to host the Super Bowl, and they love Nashville. You know, the NFL draft event there was a success. So that's probably why the NFL is pushing the Titans to upgrade the stadium because, like, we would love to have the Super Bowl in Nashville, but you guys need to have a better stadium.
Oh, absolutely. And Nashville is a global city and it's ready to host the Super Bowl. Um, so, yeah, it's a necessary thing that has to happen. I just hope it doesn't price out normal fans from being able to experience Titans games. And I think also the pressure, too, will be on the organization to rebuild in time for that stadium because obviously we're in a bit of a low point right now. We're going to find out with Brian Callahan whether or not he can make Will Levis the guy.
And another NFL point I want to bring out to discuss with you, like there are some rumors about what the Bears are gonna do with their number one pick. Are they gonna trade get some more picks, or are they gonna trade Justin Fields? And recently, Justin Fields unfollowed the Chicago Bears on Instagram. He in a podcast says it's not a big deal. You know, people take Instagram too seriously, but is that a sign that the Bears are moving on?
I think that that's definitely the case because the Bears GM said earlier today that they're looking at all opportunities and they are considering potentially moving on. Like So even the GM is saying, yeah, um, we're thinking
because
about moving on.
they got the Bears front office are asking themselves how much Justin Fields proved in in the last few seasons has been as a starting quarterback for the Bears that is worth to keep him instead of trying to go for, let's say, Caleb Williams, this generational talent at USC. So that's what they're thinking about it because there's a market for the number one pick. There'll be a lot of team interested, but the
So,
Bears,
yeah, okay. So what do you think about this? So there's a rumor that the Bears are thinking about trading away both Fields and the number one pick and just basically throwing away this season and going after a number one quarterback next year.
oh my god, I think for a while like Shadou Sanders.
Like who's even okay? So let's look at 2025 NFL mock draft
Like
because
the only
off
the
top of
only
my head,
the only I can think about is Shadou Sanders.
I mean, I guess there's what Carson Beck. Yeah, literally the number according to Walter Football, he has the Tennessee Titans as the number one overall pick for some reason, and has Shador Sanders as the number one pick.
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams is a better player than Shadou Sanders. So it would be foolish for the Bears to do this operation.
And when you have Quinn Ewers as well, there, Drew Alar. That is you can't go into the season with no quarterback. That's an insane decision.
This quarterback class of 2024 is way better than the next one. Like the Bears cannot make it would be foolish. And even if they're like, okay, we're gonna keep Fields and draft Caleb Williams, it wouldn't be the worst decision in the world. You have a guy that can start your games, and Caleb Williams just sit back and learn from it.
Yeah, it was crazy. So right now they're going to pick next year, Shador Sanders. You want to guess who's number 2 overall? Travis
Um,
Hunter.
oh yeah, I
So the
mean,
top 2 picks right now are Colorado, and they went 4-8 last year.
yeah. I guess they have really good individual talents, but overall as a roster, they weren't very good, and there's a lot of work to be done uh, by Sanders' coach and this offseason.
Oh yeah, it's going to be just a wild offseason. Additionally, the Titans they didn't franchise tag Derrick Henry, which doesn't surprise me. It's the king has been abdicated. I would say. Um, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the Titans they want to hold as much as possible Henry, but this season they really need to think about a trade. Like it
oh
does
yeah,
doesn't like they need to get as much valuable as they can from Henry to up his stock for the until the trade deadline.
yeah. And so far, in terms of franchise tags, um, T. Higgins got the franchise tag from Cincinnati, and that was the guy that a lot of Titans fans have been talking about whether or not the Titans should go after T. Higgins to bolster the receiving core. A lot of fans did not want him, which I thought kind of weird because like T. Higgins easily would be the second best receiver on this team behind DeAndre Hopkins. Um,
Yeah, and he's also a Tennessee native.
yeah, like we need a wide receiver too to go with Hopkins desperately because probably with the first round of the draft you're going to go with Joe Alt or the guy from Penn State, the fellow the guy who doesn't has a really long name, um, but apparently the Titans are too good for T Higgins. Apparently, we'll sell for Nick Westbrook-Akeen instead. I
Yeah.
don't get it. I would take any like a plurality of receivers over what we have in that room.
Oh yeah,
Anything to
for
help
sure.
a young quarterback out. So, in any case, we'll wrap it up for tonight. Here, episode 119 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. Your last show of February. When we come back next week, it's fully time for some March Madness. And you may want to really tune into the next episode because I think we got some really good stuff coming up soon.
Yeah, we hopefully gonna have a guest that speaks English, is American, plays basketball, but he's not on the NBA or college basketball, but he plays professional basketball. So that's the clue. He's a
Absolutely.
Yeah, we might have a professional American professional basketball player that he's not in the NBA. So we'll talk about next week.
Absolutely. So even if if that doesn't happen, we still have plenty to talk about. But for Gus Tomazeli down in the Americana, I am Nick Hill here in Chattanooga, and you have been watching the only American and Brazilian sports podcast, Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. Have a good night.